All right, so I want to read a little bit from the book of Tobit to show how we are not supposed to be doing the feasts outside of the promised land, how we were only supposed to do them in the place where Jehovah puts his name, which is Jerusalem forever, as 2 Chronicles 33 verse 4 says. So we see this example of Tobit, where he goes to Jerusalem to keep the feasts in Tobit chapter 1. I'm going to start in verse 3 here. It says, I, Tobit, have walked all the days of my life in the way of truth and justice, and I did many alms deeds to my brethren and my nation, who came with me to Nineveh into the land of the Assyrians. Okay, so he's talking about how his people are taken by the Assyrian captivity because he is from the tribe of Naphtali, the northern kingdom. And when I was in mine own country in the land of Israel, being but young, all the tribe of Naphtali, my father, fell from the house of Jerusalem, which was chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, that all the tribes should sacrifice there, where the temple of the habitation of the Most High was consecrated and built for all ages. Okay, so the northern kingdom fell away. Their kings started making them doing all these pagan sacrifices instead. Verse 5, now all the tribes which together revolted, and the house of my father Naphtali sacrificed unto the heifer Baal. But I alone went often to Jerusalem at the feasts, as it was ordained unto all the people of Israel by an everlasting decree, having the first fruits and tenths of increase, with that which was first shorn, and then gave I at the altar to the priests, the children of Aaron. Okay, so he knew he must go to Jerusalem in order to do the feasts. This is what is written in Deuteronomy chapter 12 and Deuteronomy chapter 16. So go read those chapters until you understand that there is one place that we are allowed to do the feasts. That is the place God puts his name, Jerusalem, and it's there forever, just as the feasts are forever. Verse 7, the first tenth part of all increase I gave to the sons of Aaron who ministered at Jerusalem. Another tenth part I sold away and went and spent it every year at Jerusalem. And the third I gave unto them to whom it was meet, as Deborah my father's mother had commanded me, because I was left an orphan by my father. Furthermore, when I was come to the age of a man, I married Anna of mine own kindred, and of her I begat Tobias. And when we were carried away captives to Nineveh, all my brethren and those that were of my kindred did eat of the bread of the Gentiles, but I kept myself from eating, because I remembered God with all my heart. Okay, so he didn't eat the bread of the Gentiles. So you're not supposed to do the pagan feasts either. I'm not saying that you go do that, so don't make this false dichotomy that, oh, you're not doing God's feast, so you must be doing the pagan feasts. No, I'm not doing any feasts right now. The only day I'm keeping is the Sabbath day, which is Saturday, sunrise to sunrise, and the same should be said of you, right? So let's go to chapter 2, and let's see what happens when Tobit actually tries doing these feasts outside of Jerusalem, outside of the inheritance in the Assyrian captivity. Tobit 2, verse 1, now when I was come home again, and my wife Anna was restored unto me, with my son Tobias, in the feast of Pentecost, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks, there was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat. And when I saw abundance of meat, I said to my son, go and bring what poor man soever thou shalt find out of our brethren, who is mindful of the Lord, and lo, I tarry for thee. But he came again and said, Father, one of our nation is strangled, and is cast out in the marketplace. Then before I had tasted of any meat, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. Then I returned and washed myself, and ate my meat in heaviness, remembering that prophecy of Amos, as he said, your feasts shall be turned into mourning, and all your mirth into lamentation. So immediately after he tries doing the feast in captivity, he remembers the prophecy about Amos, where he says that your feast will be turned into lamentation and mourning. So he is punished for doing these feasts because the feasts were taken away. The northern kingdom was cut off for doing idolatry, so they're punished. They don't get to do the feasts anymore. And it's the same thing for us today because we are still in captivity. We're in exile. We're in the Gentile nations. You can see another example of this in Daniel chapter 10. He knew to fast over the Passover season during the first month in Daniel chapter 10 because he was in exile. He was in the Babylonian exile. So follow these examples you see in Scripture. What happens to people who do the feasts outside the land? They're punished. what happens to the righteous people who don't do the feasts outside the land because they listen to the full instruction of the Torah? Well, they are seen as righteous people. They are blessed. Verse 7, therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun I went and made a grave and buried him. But my neighbors mocked me, and said, this man is not yet afraid to be put to death for this matter, who fled away, and yet lo, he burieth the dead again. The same night also I returned from the burial, and slept by the wall of my courtyard, being polluted, and my face was uncovered. And I knew not that there were sparrows in the wall, and mine eyes being open, the sparrows muted warm dung into mine eyes, and a whiteness came into mine eyes. And I went to the physicians, but they helped me not. So again, he is punished a second time because these birds, there comes dung from them into his eye, and he has this blindness for most of the story of Tobit until he is later healed. Okay, so I want to now jump over to the book of Malachi, chapter 2, to explain a little bit about this as well. So Malachi 2, verse 1, and now, O ye priests, this commandment is for you. Okay, the kings and the priests, we are all called to be these kings and these priests, but these feasters in Ephraim and USA, they are feasting right now, and they are not fulfilling the royal law to love their neighbors as themselves. They're feeding themselves like Ezekiel 34 evil shepherds, and they're doing their own will. They're doing what's right in their own eyes and not what's right in God's eyes. He desires mercy and not sacrifice. Verse 2, if ye will not hear, and if ye will not lay it to heart to give glory unto my name, saith the Lord of hosts, I will even send a curse upon you, and will curse your blessings. Yea, I have cursed them already, because ye do not lay it to heart. Behold, I will corrupt your seed, and spread dung upon your faces, even the dung of your solemn feasts. So the dung goes in Tobit's eye because he tries doing the feasts, and God is going to spread dung upon your faces, even the dung of your solemn feasts. Again, another prophecy against people doing the feasts right now. There's so much of this in prophecy, so go read the prophets and listen to the full instruction of Torah. And one shall take you away with it, and ye shall know that I have sent this commandment unto you, that my covenant might be with Levi, saith the Lord of hosts. My covenant was with him of life and peace, and I gave them to him for the fear wherewith he feared me, and was afraid before my name. The law of truth was in his mouth, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and equity, and did turn many away from iniquity. This is what you should be doing, fulfilling the royal law to love your neighbor and rebuke sin, turning people away from iniquity, not focusing on the feast right now, partying like there's no tomorrow. You got to mourn for the people, mourn for Zion, find the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and teach them God's statutes. Verse 7, for the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth, for he is the messenger of the Lord of hosts. But ye are departed out of the way, ye have caused many to stumble at the law. You guys are putting burdens upon people that they no longer need to be doing. You do not need to figure out the calendar, so don't teach people to do the feasts. Don't put them under sacrificial law. Go back to the flesh and say we need to be circumcised either. Ye have corrupted the covenant of Levi, saith the Lord of hosts. Therefore have I also made you contemptible and base before all the people, according as ye have not kept my ways, but have been partial in the law. You are not listening to the full instruction of Torah, which says wait until you're in your inheritance to do the feast. You cannot do them outside in mystery Babylon. And also, you're being respecters of persons. You're not fulfilling the royal law without respect of persons. You're just doing it to whoever you feel like, and you're not judging people as you were commanded to do. It's the same thing as Isaiah 1 against Judah. All right, so now I want to quickly jump over to 1 Samuel 15, just to show how these people called to be kings and priests are going to be rejected for not listening to the full instruction of God. All right, so 1 Samuel 15, the context of this chapter, Saul was called to utterly destroy the Amalekites, but he left some of the cattle for burnt offerings that God did not command. So it says in verse 22, and Samuel said to Saul, hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of Jehovah? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of Jehovah, he hath also rejected thee from being king. So you will be rejected if you do not keep the full instruction of Torah.